I'm not talking about this. This will be a conversation for a different video. It just happens to be my desk right now because I just got it. I don't even know how to start this conversation, and it is. I'm hoping it doesn't turn into an hour-long rant because I don't have the time today. It is July 1st today, and we have our friends coming over for our annual barbecue that Sandy and I've been doing for the last 20 years. 19. I think the easiest way to preview this is to talk about this. I was thinking about this many times, but specifically today. I have been part of organizations, volunteer organizations, literally my entire cognizant life. Literally my entire cognizant life, I've been involved in community groups, volunteer community groups. My parents were very active in the community, and not just my parents, my extended family, uncles, aunts, cousins, grandmas, grandpas, literally everybody that I grew up with was involved in the community. Church groups, young people's, whatever, what they were doing, church groups, Boy Scouts. I've mentioned I was in Boy Scouts for a bunch of years. Community groups, the men's club and whatever else was going on. We'd be at events and bottle drives and paper drives and whatever else. Community events, community groups. The Peach Festival always needed volunteers, and so we'd always be there for the Peach Festival every single year, doing stuff before and during. So I have been my entire life involved in community events, volunteer, not getting paid for it at all. And nor were the people running it getting paid for it at all. And that's the way communities get built. That's the way communities survive. That's the way communities thrive, is for those people, my parents and all the other pillars of society I grew up with. I mentioned that I grew up in a very civically oriented community. And I also understand that in the 21st century that's somehow passé. But I've been involved my entire life and come to realize I'm captain oblivious on any given day, but I've come to realize a whole bunch of stuff when it comes to volunteer organizations and stuff like that. And this isn't meant to be demeaning at all, but is succinctly summed up with the expression, you get what you get. Now, to be clear, that always has a negative connotation when taken in the context that it's usually given in. But for volunteer organizations, you don't have the luxury, you do not have the ability to fire people. You don't have the ability to, just get rid of that person because they're not meshing properly and go get somebody else. It's a volunteer organization and people show. Now, again, I've been in situations where the person who shows up to volunteer has been completely not appropriate to volunteer, and they are politely asked to leave. I've been there a few times, relatively, but 99.999% of the things that I've done in my life, the days, the groups, the committees, I was on the high school students council. I was in the newspapers for the colleges and blah blah blah. Anything I could volunteer that fits into my sense of self, I'm gonna do. I've done. So, but you get what you get, and to make it less disparaging, and to take it into the context I want to give it, is that in a volunteer organization, people are going to show up, and you have to work with the personalities of them overall. And overall, people who want to show up want to do good stuff for the community, for the kids, for the people, for the whatever we're volunteering for cleaning up the community, whatever. And there's always going to be those people who don't put all the same amount of effort, the same amount of drive, the same amount of whatever. Like my parents were a force of nature, straight up. They were this. There's no denying how much of a force of nature my parents were, because the community stepped up and told me how much. They won it. They won the citizenship year work together. Because of their community support and the volunteers and again, it wasn't a burden on my parents. Again, we won't even talk about that kind of context, but it wasn't a burden on my parents overall to do that. They loved it. I loved it. I'm going to mention from top to bottom, even though I don't partake anymore in the majority of this stuff, there wasn't a single point in my entire 57 years on this planet. There wasn't a time when I didn't do or I was doing something I didn't want to do for the community, for the support, for the whatever, showing up and volunteering, whatever. I loved every moment of it. I loved it with the church. And again, I don't go to church now, but I will not regret one moment of my life at church. None. I have no regrets. I have nothing but joy and appreciation for the people and the ministers and everything I've met, the people and everything I've did. Absolutely adored it. Absolutely adored it. It's not for me now. I don't want to use the word grew out of it, but I'm a different person now than I was back then. And the Boy Scouts, I loved, adored. Some of my best friends that I still have, I had because of Boy Scouts in school and whatever else. And it taught me loads. Now again, the Canadian Boy Scouts, I'm not going to get into the political crap. My time at Boy Scouts was fantastic, and so were all my friends. There was nothing there that was disparaging or demeaning or whatever. My time with the community groups, the community cleanups and the food drives and the bottle drives and the paper drives and the metal drives and whatever else is that was going on in Stony Creek and or Winona at the time. I'd be there, not just because my parents would drag me there, because I did it in my teenage years when I could have stayed home. I still went out. I did what I did because I enjoyed giving back to the community. That's the gifts that gave stuff to me. So all this stuff is to be said. And I don't know if I want to get into specifics, but my whole thing about volunteer organization is you get what you get. People come in all flavors. Some people's way of being themselves doesn't mesh with other people, and I noticed that again out of all the dozens and dozens of community things that I've done and organizations that I've helped with. There are always going to be soap operas. There are always going to be soap operas. I've never known a time there when there wasn't a soap opera at any of these things. And most of the time, again, Captain Oblivious, I didn't pay any attention to it. And sometimes it was like just ruminations. That person's like overstepping their authority. What authority is a volunteer organization? But whatever. But in my history of doing this stuff for 57, like cognizant since 4 or 5, so 53 years of doing this stuff. There's like my mom got so incensed sometimes about the Boy Scouts of Canada for whatever, and valid reasons. I will never say my mom did not have valid reasons at the time for not being happy with the organization for whatever reasons she may have had at the time. They were justified. They're justified in her mind, and when she explained it to me, they were justified in my mind too. But anyway, overall though, I'm not going to talk disparagingly about the Boy Scouts of Canada, because overall they've been fantastic. But my mom had issues with specific people doing specific things that seemed to be deliberately antagonizing my mom, and so why would she be there volunteering for this stuff? So she left a bunch of times. She left Boy Scouts a bunch of times, but still she put 40 years into it. Like, she was my brother's cub leader, Akela, after Mrs. Edith, Mrs. Free. It could have been somebody else. If it was Mrs. Free, that's great, because I love Mrs. Free. Stepped down and Mom took over, and Mom was my brother's, mine, and then a whole bunch of other, and then she became a beaver leader, and then a venture leader, and whatever. So she was there for 40 plus years, doing stuff for Boy Scouts of Canada. And even when she was miffed at whoever and she took a step back, anytime one of her other friend leaders that she's been friends with for 40 years called, "Hey Linda, we need help." And I'm going to mention this, and I'm actually getting a little misty thinking about it right now. The last time my mom was alive, she was preparing Can't get misty. She was preparing for Boy Scout camp in St. Catharines, that she always did for all those years. And she passed away doing it. She passed away doing something she loved. She wasn't in Onion anymore. She took a step back to let the next generation take over. She did her bit for King and Country, and she stepped back to let other people step up to be the official leaders. I'm crying about it. Think of my mom. She's been gone 13 years now. 12 years. She stepped back, but she would still show up anytime her friend Mr. Kelk, my friend Mr. Kelk, or Mr. Young, or whoever was still in the organization, said, Linda, can you come over and do the crafts for the kids? Because Mom was fantastic with absolutely. She every single time she was asked, she stepped up. And so I found her passed away getting ready for Boy Scout camp 13 years ago. But anyway, putting that aside, I'm a little emotional right now. Forgive me. It was a wonderful time for my life, and I will never regret 1 minute of it with doing it. And even with the friction with some other people, because their personalities were clashing with other people's personalities. It's going to happen. And in voluntary organizations, you can't fire somebody. You can't dismiss somebody unless it's over the top. But if there's some friction because this person's personality is doing X and you wanted the organization or the event to go Y, it is what it is. And if you have the authority, if it is, I've done this before, where I'm running a show. And again, I've never had this problem overall. I used to, again, this is to bring it back to me-ish. I did shows. I ran shows, not the entire show, but if we were doing the hobby show or the toy show or the Christmas show, I would call up the organizers and I said, hey, give me a 40 by 40 area. And they would always say yes, which was great. And I would have to get all my friends, all my Lego buddies. So I'm volunteering my time to get all this organizing, and I didn't put a lot of effort into it. But I didn't have to, because I had a list of friends a mile long who would show up for these things, and we had a blast every single weekend. But and even in those shows, there was sometimes a personality conflict between peoples. And that's what it is. And you have to be able to walk that minefield in a proper manner that doesn't upset the apple cart, that doesn't, and you have to make, it's nuanced, and you have to make the decision that's right for you. And if you are the organizer or the leader or the whatever, the person, you're running the event, you have to step up. And I remember specifically, I didn't have this problem, thankfully, but Janie, at one of the brick fets, might have been one of the first ones, she was having a problem with people, not necessarily volunteers, thankfully, but the people. And so she had to take care of that because she is the ultimate responsibility for that. Just like my mom, for whatever she did back in the day, she was the ultimate authority. And you have to be able to say, hey, that's not appropriate to whoever, to the show, to what I'm trying to do here. Please understand that you can't do that. And then if the person said, oh, I'm sorry, and again, if it's done in a proper, responsible, and appreciative manner, some people just, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, you shouldn't be running the show, you're no good as a leader, blah, blah. It doesn't matter what the other person's response is. At that specific moment, there is one person in charge of this show, and my mom or Janie, whoever, and you say, and us who are also volunteering to help out Jeannie, my mom, whoever, have to take that as gospel, that this is then appropriate and this person has to stop doing that. So there are times when that's going to happen. It is absolutely times when that's going to happen. And my thing right now is I want to support the leaders of the volunteers things that we're doing in a way that I can. And my way of supporting the leaders, the organizers of everything, is to say that, oh, you're gonna do these shows, I want to show up with the layout if you want me. And if you don't, that's perfectly acceptable too. And I like to think I'm a value-added service, whatever I do, and I try to not step on toes, whatever I do. I try to mesh my personality because I seem to have a singular ability to not put my ego in front of what other people, but because again, I like the idea that I'm just at a show and I'm having a good time, and if they want me to do X, unless I have a moral revulsion to doing X, I'm going to do X. If you want me to talk to the public, I'm going to talk to the public. If you want me to sit down and shut up, I'm going to sit down and shut up, because it's your show, and I'm here to help you show your show, present your wares, as it were, to the world. But if there was a conflict between the organizers and somebody who is volunteering to be part of the show or the group or the committee or whatever, a volunteer, again, be clear about this because it's not getting paid, there is an appropriate response to a person who is not conducting themselves in a manner that you want them to conduct themselves in. There is an appropriate response, and the response is not to just ignore it, because then you're not happy as the organizer, the leader, or whatever. But it's also, and the person getting away with stuff. But it's also, on the flip side, not conducive to the health of the entire organization to just summarily boot the person out because they upset you. That is, for me, a bridge too far. Now, again, I have been part of organizations that, after continuous warnings and continuous putting up with and continuous whatever, that some people have been asked to leave. That was a continuous build-up to where this person was just causing aggravation and antagonism and blah, 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 over and over and over and over again. There was little redeeming and all antagonism all the time. Again, there's nuance, there's balance. Like, if they're bringing a lot to the show, or the organization or the committee or whatever, and they are antagonistic, what are you gonna do? But if they're bringing nothing happiness to the committee, they're just all the time griping about X, Y, and Z, then you have to do something about it. But then the leader has to make the decision. But I also, there's my other expression that to go back to the other side, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You don't do the nuclear option at the first sign of whatever. You don't do it. I was talking to camera. Make a little video. Make a little video. I got time. What? I'm not mentioning names. I'm not mentioning names. And we got a barbecue coming up in a couple of days. So there is steps that you need to take. There are, I think, again, nebulous and they're tacit, not explicit, tacit steps that you must take in these kind of situations. And you don't immediately start off with the nuclear option by, quote unquote, firing or dismissing the person carte blanche. And on top of which, you do not, or give them a chance to either explain and or redeem themselves. Because in a volunteer organization, it takes many hands. And a volunteer organization, overall, everybody who shows up wants to be there to volunteer, to do stuff. There, again, I've mentioned there have been exceptions to that rule in my own lifetime. I've seen it, that they're just in it for their own ego. and that they usually get walked to the door after a while, because they're not giving to the kids, to the show, to the volunteers, to the whatever. They're just using, getting the energy for themselves, or whatever, the glory, or whatever you want to call it, for themselves. But in any situation, there's nuance. In any situation, there's a way of conducting from both sides. And I think that for myself, I always err on the side of appreciation of the person until they show me that they shouldn't be appreciated. I have never been a part of any organization or any volunteer where the person who was dismissed was, in my opinion, unable to rehabilitate themselves. The people who were dismissed were always 100% in it for personal reasons and not for the whatever that was going on, and so losing them was not a hit to the organization. But in what's going on with my life right now, I think that losing the person permanently is unjustified. Like 1,000%. I hate to be hyperbolic. 100% unjustified. It has been. Again, I don't want to make it known for names and stuff like that. I have my personal opinion on people, and I watch at shows, and I watch what people do, and how they act. And my problem has always been being part of thousands of or hundreds or dozens of organizations in my life. I know when a line's crossed, and for me, the line wasn't even close to being crossed yet. There are personality issues. There's always going to be personality issues. Nothing's gonna. The more general point is nothing's gonna kill your committee, your volunteer organization, your group of volunteers, your whatever you're doing quicker than animosity amongst everybody. Nothing's gonna kill your group quicker. And I've already been part of one lug that folded, a Lego group that folded, and that's because people lost interest. And I'm gonna say that's not it at all. There was lots of interest. There was obviously lots of interest. I never stopped being interested. My friends never stopped being interested. It came down to a clash of personalities. It really did. It came down to a clash of personalities. And nothing's going to ruin your group more than a clash of personalities that are not dealt with in a nuanced and responsible manner. The all or nothing manner of which I've seen before will just piss a lot of people off, and you're going to lose people in your organization because people start picking sides. I'm pro this and anti that, instead of saying we're all in this together. Somebody might have misstepped. There's a line to walk and they fell off the line. Hey, dude, we're walking in this direction. See, that works everywhere. We're walking in this direction. If you want to come along, we'd love to have you. You've been, sometimes you're going in the complete opposite, which is making the rest of us look bad. Whatever it is, but you talk to them. You don't summarily boot. See you, bye. Because that's just going to, for a person who's volunteered and done this kind of stuff my entire life, that just does not sit right with me. It really doesn't. And it doesn't matter to me about the personalities. You can dislike the person to the cows come home, and that's entirely on you, and I will never ever fault you for your feelings towards that person. I've disliked people in my life. I've disliked lots of people in my life. But what they do is completely different. It doesn't matter to me what my personal opinion of that person is. If they show up and they do the work, love to have you. Love to have you. And if they step out of line a little bit and you say, oh, dude, we're kind of walking this way. Can you understand this is where we want to go. This is this is what we want to project to the world at a show, at a whatever. And what you're doing there is not appropriate to that vision. And again, all this to be said, if the person, and again, this is, again, the hypothetical now, there's nothing to do with this specific issue now. I've been in organizations, again, where people are being conceited and they just want to do what they want to do and screw the organization and the volunteers and whatever else. They just, for their own glory, look what I did instead of look what we did, kind of thing. I've also been part of organizations where people present one way at the start, and then they start taking over. They're like, there's an old movie with, it doesn't matter. I'm not gonna start quoting movies again, but they start off fantastic. You think this is gonna go well, and then all of a sudden you realize that all of a sudden they're saying stuff or doing stuff that is completely contrary to the vision of the group. And you say, where'd this come from? And you give them a chance to say, oh, I'm sorry, that's what I thought we were going. And you say, no, we're going over here where we want to project this instead of that. You give the person a chance. And in volunteer organizations, you give them a little bit more than a chance. instead of just giving the boot. And again, people keep on saying, "Oh, we've done this and that." No, you didn't. I've been here. You really didn't. You've pontificated, you've ruminated, you've had a problem, you've spoken out with your issues thereof, but at no point was anything conveyed to reduce or explain. It was always, we don't like you, we don't like what you're doing, you're gone. I have a tough time with that. But anyway, I can't keep on going. I'm gonna go for my barbecue now. I've already been part of one failed, or one, well, I can't say it was a failed. I've already been part of one Lego group, Lego user group. That's what, so far, those of you who don't know what LUG means, is Lego user group. I've already been part of one Lego user group that folded due to issues, shall we say, with personalities, shall we say. And I'm feeling like I'm starting to be part of another one, where what I've noticed, sorry not to take this thing a little longer, what I have noticed over the years at these volunteer things, whatever they are, church, school, community, scouting, is the regular cast of characters always shows up at every event, or most events. You use the same people, the same core group of people, which is great, because that's what I get along with the best. I guess we're all there for this. And then you have the whole bunch of other people that are there for most of it or some of it, and then you get the people who show up once or twice, which is, again, perfectly acceptable. That's the whole part of volunteering. You don't have to be there every single time. But what I've noticed for myself is that when the core people show up and nobody else ever shows up, and all the other people do is gripe about stuff and not show up, is usually when the end is nigh. And the core group of people just keep on showing up until they get disenfranchised, and then they stop showing up, and then what's left? When you have the friction, when the parents are fighting, people just don't want to be around. They don't want to be around. Also, rumors and spreading disinformation also will kill your group faster than anything else. If you say, "Oh, I don't like that person because they allegedly said X, Y, Z," do you know? Do you know what they said? Are you sure that's what they said? Did you ask them? Did you go find out from the source what was actually, how they perceived it? No. That will kill your group faster. Ruminations, gossip, stabbing people in the back when they're not there, that will just kill your group, because I don't want to be around you. I don't want to be, if you talk smack about somebody else in the group when they're not there, I don't want to be there. I like that person. Even if I didn't like that person, I'm going to talk smack about them, because I don't know everything. I get Captain Oblivious. I don't know everything, but if I'm at a show or whatever doing something, and X person doesn't show up, and the entire time people are, X, really? We're here to have a show. We're here to have a good show. I don't want to talk about X. If you have a problem with X, then you go talk to X about it. And if, I'm going to also say this, and this isn't related at all. I do respect, I will say this, I do respect, and this is a completely different tangent, it has nothing to do with anything. The guy who runs Brick World, I think his name's Brian. Brian and I got into a very big argument way back in the day. Like, I think it was on Lugnet. I think it was on somebody's Facebook post. We got into a huge argument because I am ultra left. Ed Begley Jr. ultra left, and he's ultra right. He's gun-toting, Charlton Heston loving, NRA appreciating guy. And again, all the power to you. And so we got into it. We got into it. And again, it was about our positions on that specific topic. And we both said at the end of that conversation that it had nothing to do with the people. He appreciated me at Brick World when I went there a bunch of years back. I appreciate his efforts for the community and the stuff that he does. And he would love, we are going to go back to Brick World. And he is a good person. I might not accept his beliefs and stuff, and he doesn't have to believe my beliefs and stuff. That's what makes the world go round. Nobody has to be like me. I'm walking in this direction. If you want to walk with me, go ahead. If you want to walk somewhere else, go ahead. I'd love to have you, and hope that you're happy. It's elsewhere. It's fun to be elsewhere. And so no matter what we said to each other on that thread, we both appreciated each other. Again, he's the guy who runs Brick World, and I'm just a lowly peon over here building my stuff in my little YouTube channel. But that he said, and I said, it will not affect at all my appreciation of who he is and what he does. And he says never appreciate it doesn't his appreciation of me, which is, again, no matter how much you dislike somebody's stance on something, unless it's world ending, like they're pro killing babies or something like that, that's a completely separate experience. But this is the way it should be. Like, we can have a healthy discussion and debate about whatever's ailing or troubling us, and then afterwards, it's the topic that we have a separate idea of, not the person. I love the guy. I think he's fantastic. I talked to him at Brick World back in 2010. I've talked to him before that, and we've talked before. He's a nice, decent guy. Like, I don't have a problem with Charlton Heston. I've seen all his movies. Their stance on specific issues is their stance on specific issues. Like, my stance on specific issues is my stance on specific issues. That's the way it is. Somebody can come up to me and try to convince me that my stance is wrong. They'd have to bring a cogent and rational argument, but in the end, it's the topic, not the person. And people can completely disagree with me on a lot of stuff. That's the beauty of life. And this is what I keep on talking about: the volunteers. People are coming from different walks of life, coming into your organization to do stuff together. And if you're volunteering, when I show up, I listen to the person running the show. And I say, well, how can I aid you to give you the show that you want to give? Some people don't do that, and that's whatever. But the person who's running it has the ultimate authority to say X, Y, and Z. Sometimes, in my opinion, steps have taken too far and too fast and whatever. But again, that's just me. I am supportive of people. Not necessarily get along. Can't we all just get along? That's not what I'm trying to say here. What I'm trying to say is that there's tacit, proper steps to take in conflict situations, and in the specific instance, those steps were not taken, in my opinion, and there's leaving a bad taste in my mouth right now. And since I, out of the people I know, can go on and do my own shows, which I have done, I don't need the group. I want to be part of the group. I don't need the group, but if the group is going to take this kind of all or nothing stance, I've been there before, and that's not for me. I like to work with people. I don't like to work for anybody. And if the group leaders are taking this stance of this is it, and they're laid on the foot and crush the uprising, the upstarts, then I'm not interested. I'm interested in forming communities. I'm interested in working with people that I want to work with. I am interested in being with people I want to be with. That's all I want out of this hobby. That's all I've ever wanted. Anyway, I'm sure you guys are just all shaking your head saying, what's he going on about now? In the end, my belief is, I'm not saying this is the beginning of the end. I'm not saying this is the beginning of the end. I am saying that at this point, if it were me, sober second thought, I would revisit the decisions that were made. That's just if it were me. Because I find this all or nothing, because some people don't like X. They find X is grating and conflicting with what they want to do. This isn't a job. This is volunteer. And if you talk to X, and maybe X is willing to say, oh, maybe I did, step out of or went too far or X, Y, and Z. People grow. People learn. Like me 20 years ago was a lot different than I am now. I'm a lot more, whatever. Although I was that back then too. But my history of working with volunteers has shown that you can't be authoritarian And that's what I'm feeling it is right now. You can't be authoritarian when it comes to people who volunteer. You can make decisions that you believe is best for the group. But understand that people watching these decisions being made, from my point of view, are saying, "Oh my goodness, that's just a way over the top response to what happened." And it's just my opinion. And again, I'm nobody on the council. I'm nobody on the committees. I'm nobody now because I don't want to be, because I did all that. Again, just like I keep on trying to tell my dad, I've done my bit for this is the old expression. I've done my bit for King and Country. I've led shows. I've volunteered. I've been the leaders for lots of different committees and lots of different groups and lots of different whatever. My mom was too, and I'm at the point now where I just want to show up. I just want to show up. I want to show up and display my stuff, have a great talk with the public, see my old friends, catch up, and then go home. That's all I want to do. I don't want to be part of any committees, any boards, anything like that. It's not, that has no interest for me at all. I'm on the board for our property, and I don't want to be on that right now. That's a whole other topic. And they put me as president. Oh my God. Like, I'm saying, really? Like, I'm 56 years of doing this stuff, and I was still, like, starting to like step back and let other people take care of stuff and blah blah blah. All of a sudden I'm president. Like, come on. But anyway, that's it. That's all. I hope that rambling bunch of rambles did something for somebody. I am Team X all the way right now. Nobody's justified why I shouldn't be Team X. I appreciate X more than you can know. Team X has been, for me, an exemplary person across the board. There are personal issues that X has with other people, and I understand that. But again, for me, and seeing my whole life of volunteers and working with people and trying to get things going, X has been exemplary. Yes, there have been missteps. Nobody's perfect. I make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. And X can learn from mistakes too. And so, for the love of everything, revisit this. Anyway, that's it. That's all. I will talk to you guys later.